Also, as you conclude your session tomorrow, will be practical to you. Most of you high school coaches, I've done very little coaching directly in high school, though I work with high school kids all the time. But I coach a college team that at times, in fact right now, I'm actually, two of the guys that are in our room have never wrestled before. And we're having some preliminary practices in the fall for the guys who aren't out in fall sport. And two guys show up and they said, I've never wrestled before, I've never been in a school that had a wrestling program. I'd like to do it. So I've did this, I've coached guys from all the way from never having wrestled to guys in the college level who have been at it since they were in first grade. And I'm working with them all in the same room. So I think there's some ways in which I could say I've experienced the same kinds of beginning things that you guys do at a high school level. So I hope what I show today to be of value to you. I'm glad to hear that you remembered that I was on the 80 Olympic team. Since there's a individual in the state of Wisconsin who's running for office, I won't tell you who he is, but evidently his press release is he was on the Olympic team. I think I beat him. That's what I understood, and I've been telling people for years that I beat him. But somehow he's trying to win political office by saying that he was on the Olympic team, but it was boycotting me. Well, that's not precise. We won't get into political questions here today. All right, what I'm going to do is show you some of the things I'm going to work on takedowns to begin with, but I'm going to show you some of the things that I do, looking not so much specifically at technique as much as positions, and I'm going to show you several of them. I've been to several clinics like this. We have them in the state of Wisconsin. I go to them quite often whenever I can. They're running it this weekend, or I'd be there. And many of the clinicians, when they come in, I notice that they will do one technique or one series all the way through. And I hope I change and make some variety. Todd Whelan's going to help me. Todd, why don't you come on up? The first one that I'm actually going to do is I have some sheets here, and Wes said that he'd get some copied. I have a few of them on the table over there, but it wouldn't begin to cover everybody here. So if you want one, you can get one there later. We'll have some more tomorrow. We'll make some copies of it. But I'm going to go through and show you several different techniques that I use to begin the season with. And I find this. You need guys to be able to do this even before they can do moves on several of these techniques. The first one is to teach the guys to do a back step with a pivot. With the idea of backing here and pivot. And we will have our guys in our room simply doing this little move here. And we'll start it initially with quick little steps, then big pivot, big pivot. And when we do that, I'm looking to have them on their feet, being able to go backwards and not fall down. Now, what I used to do is I get in and I say, okay, somebody would ask me, where do you use that? Probably the most obvious place is a single leg dump right here. When I want to do a dump and I go back, if I don't know how to make that step, I stumble all over. Most kids, almost everyone that I've ever coached, when he starts doing a single leg back dump, he tries to pivot and push a guy like that. He's trying to torque him and drive him down. Instead of this, I'll go out of this position and go to the one here, where I have him up this way and I want to take him down. The guys that take here and they want to pivot him like this. Instead of this. When you see a good controlled athlete, high school or college level, he will drop his position and stick his behind out and back up. So I look at taking my young guys all the way through to the most experienced, and we just start in this position and we have them back up. Then I put them into doing the single leg dump, whether it's here or here. And they already know how to do that. There are some other things that they we use this on. Escape from here. This is the way I teach an escape from the standing position. One foot goes forward, we break the lock. Most kids want to do this square. Angle. Break the lock. Now, the same back step pivot. Right there. Notice the other one had the little steps. This one didn't have the little steps. It just had the big swing. And my behind's always leading. When I have them drill this, I will often tell them this. Imagine if the official's back there and stick your behind into them. And I'll tell them, go back and they'll start knocking into each other. Be careful doing that because they start banging their hips against each other and they can bruise each other. But initially, they have a little fun trying to hit each other that way. Always tell them it's the official. That gives them an extra little motivation. And then, just a little place I'll show you where that back step pivoting idea that I use it in one of my duck unders is I get to a duck under here. If I have head control, I take it all the way down. And I take him all the way to the mat with that little spin. You can see the back step pivot in the middle of that. Okay? So I'm teaching duck unders later in the season, and a kid doesn't know how to do this. I have to go back and teach him that step first. So I'm looking ahead and say, if we do that kind of thing and isolate a motion like that and have them drill on that, that'll help. I'm sure you have a bunch of them. All I'm going to show you today, in essence, is several of them that I've understood to be of value that way. Another thing, kids notorious from a younger stand up and locking hands. I won't spend a lot of time on this, but initially when you start saying you're going to lock your arms, the kids will always ask, or they'll always look, and they'll start grabbing their fingers here and how they're going to do that. And you really need to emphasize with your kids, I think, I do this in various ways, that the gripping of our fingers is not strong enough to keep locked in a really nasty, tight position. You have to do this. I remember being in college at Iowa State. Go ahead and read out. I'm a junior, senior in college, and I'm at the peak, I guess you'd say, of my condition and my success as a college wrestler. And I remember getting people down in a cradle like this and having a guy ready to be pinned. And I'm looking at my hands and I'm saying, you're not going to break this time. And I squeezed those fingers until they turned white, and I watched him pull them apart. And I remember going back to my teammates who were doing cradles and doing fun. And maybe some of you would remember Pete Galea. Pete Galea was my height, wrestling 40 pounds lighter than me. And I looked at those scrawny little arms of Pete's, and I said, how long does he do those cradles and keep walking all the time? And here, everybody tells me how strong I am lifting weights. I don't know how much Pete lifted weights, not a lot. He was just kind of gnarly naturally. And, I know he did a little bit. It wasn't like people complimented him for being this powerful looking guy. He wasn't. He was nasty and gnarly enough to keep looking until he got the right position. And I remember talking to him and initially just saying, how would you keep the lock together? And he showed me how he locked his hands. And finally he ended up after just going back for 3-4 times over a month period of time, he says, well, Ben, it's not the hands that hold the lock, it's your arms. Get your shoulders working and squeeze the elbows here. So we do some things initially just talking. Until he says, draw them in here, draw them in, pull them back, draw them in, pull them back, draw them in, pull them back. Then we start looking at how we control hands. And understanding this is the basic principle that I want initially you guys to fully understand, that the arms and hands only can pull and squeeze like this. They do very poorly gripping. They do much better pulling like this. Then what we need to do is get good hooks. And I have them do 3 different hooks. I'll just show you these quick. Finger lock right here. We often also refer to that as fish hook lock. We hook here. Palm lock. The guys will always want to take their thumb and put it separate like this. And I simply tell them this. You do this and you're locked here with that lock. He won't do it. He knows better. High school kids will do that right there. And guys will start pulling on the thumb. You say that's illegal. Of course it is. But you tell me when I'm doing it illegally. And I've had guys say, well, just look at his face. The official's going to look at his face when he's going to decide whether it's illegal. You can hide that. And I don't know. I That's probably most every wrestler sooner or later has tried pulling that, whether it's legal or not. You can hide it and the guy's gone. You should never leave your thumb unprotected to do that job or even help it. The finger should. The first one only bends those two knuckles. The second one bends this knuckle. Much stronger and bigger unless you squeeze with the thumb. Then you still only have two knuckles. So now you got three. And then the third one is where we hook the wrist. And we refer to this as wrist lock. Some people refer to it as a butterfly lock. I also refer to it as a meat hook. That's about the size of the old meat hook that used to be in a locker my dad would send the beef to the market to be cut up and send back to us for our freezer. And remember that big old hook like that, hanging that whole cow in there. And just think of this. I got a hook. Grab a hold of it right there. Now, another little thing, and just to help with guys will try to do this, is they'll come and squeeze and try to do arm drags grabbing here. And I just tell people this, in using my arms and squeezing and locking with my arms and hands, the only time I ever squeeze like this is in three places in all of wrestling. One is when I shake hands. I'm squeezing there. The second is when I grab a wrist to control for arm drags. The wrist controls like this. The third one, when I need to do this. I don't know where else you should ever take and squeeze anything like that with your hands. Okay? So, it's his hand, his wrist, and your nose. And if they try doing it here, shouldn't do it on the neck, but once in a while guys have tried doing that. And they'll come and do this on their own hands. I don't think those should be done either. These should be hooks where you hook and then draw it in. Hook and draw it in. And you should never leave the open space that way weak. And all of those other kinds of locks seem to do that. So I stick with this, here, and there. And then, when you get a cradle, you'll get this one first, you get that one second, then you go there. Same thing with bear hugs. I love bear hugs. Do a lot of those. Now start this right, then go to there, and then finally here. When you can get that. Okay? So, that's a second little idea that I want to make sure that all of my wrestlers are fully familiar with. Okay, third one is the idea of lifting. I'll go through a little, maybe I would just say a little bit a basic idea of explaining lifting. Most people, most high school wrestlers, I find in America in general, just they do a horrible job at doing throws because they have spent most of their time, whether it's a bunch or a little. And in a lot of cases, it's not a lot because they didn't get any confidence because they learned to do something where they say, well, I'm supposed to throw it. And so you take it and you throw it. But before you can throw anything, you have to lift it. And so it's a simple little thing. Before I'm going to have any of my wrestlers throw something, I will always spend time teaching them to lift. And I do very little work on teaching guys to throw, to finish, to complete throws. But I've had several wrestlers through the years who were very good at throws, arm spins, headlocks, some body locks once in a while that they get into the college level. But they've been able to do some serious throwing, hip tosses. But the key thing they must spend time on is lifting. If they spend the time on the other, I'd say this, they're trying to do God's work. You say, what do you mean? God put this thing in called gravity. It will, what we throw up will always come back down, unless we want to throw it high enough to get in orbit. And I've always longed for the day when I can throw my opponent high enough to send him in orbit. Probably not going to happen. So why spend my energy and time putting him back down? And usually what happens is when a guy tries to say, I'm going to throw him down, it's body slam. And about the time he's figuring out where he should get some confidence, an official comes and kills it all. And you don't want that to happen. So don't major, and I didn't say this anymore, but we're going to go teach throws today, and I won't teach you a single thing about throws. I'm just going to teach you how to lift. So with that as a little introduction, let me actually show you some things that I teach on lifting. I think every young wrestler needs to learn how to do these kinds of things because initially he comes in and he says, well, I'm going to do this with my arms. I'm going to squeeze and lift him with my arms. And he gets back here and he says, but coach, I'm going to get him up in the air. And he's trying to do this with his arms, and everything about his body's out of position. First thing I do, one arm simply around his waist right here. I'm going to step in front right here with my knees bent. We'll talk about that. I'll watch the guy. Say, make sure your knees are bent, and simply get your hips in front of him right there. And straight. Okay? I'm simply with my arm holding in place, getting my knees underneath, straight. He goes in the air. Every time I do that, now I'll have guys now grab hold of his wrist, you have a little better control. Lift. Do it again. Lift. Then I'll let him do the same thing. But I'll also have him do it, not just with the hand around the waist. Since Todd's a little bigger than me, I'll let him do this. You do the same thing with me, putting your hips underneath and simply lift me there. Okay? And I come in front, and I lift you. He comes in front, he lifts me. I lift him. Okay? We're teaching a kid to get his hips in position so that his legs, his hips are doing the work, not his arms. One kid would get in there lifting weights and saying, boy, I'm getting those big old biceps and shoulders and pecs, and boy, I'm going to be a tough wrestler this year. And he goes out and he tries to do this kind of a move with those arms, he's in trouble. Okay. Now, that's the first point of lifting, but it isn't a complete one. When I lift, once I'm in this position with knees bent, my hips are in tight to him. When I straighten my knees, he goes up. When I bend over, he goes more. You see, watch his feet. Watch his hips. Here, up a little, more. Now, I can control him. I can swing him, put him all the way down. But that's not my purpose. And most of the time, initially, I will not want them to put the guy to the mat. You can see how easy it would be now to just arch and put him on down. You've got some kids who have an inclination to want to throw people. If you say, well, I'm going to guide him on how to finish a headlock and how to lock up, and you don't do this part, I think you're going to frustrate the kid. I've coached some guys who ended up teaching me a ton because they were involved in Greco, and they taught me a lot of things about throws that I didn't learn in my freestyle on my own. And Jim Grunwald was on our Olympic team this year and ended up 6th on Greco. He came and he would throw relentlessly because he got his hips in. Well, I had to work on his balancing, how he was doing it with everything else. And I began to watch the way Jim put his hip in. And it was then that I really started developing, hey, man, why are you always telling people how to throw them down when the key thing is you got to get them up in the air? And same thing with Mike Houck, who had the privilege of coaching them at college level as well. And both of those guys Greco to the core. And I initially say I didn't know anything about Greco. I only learned Greco. But the idea here, straighten it, bend it. Straighten the knees and arch with the hips, and you stick your behind up into them. Now, you do that initially here, then have guys do it here. Same thing. Then go over the top of the arm, then have them do the head, and then have them do this way. Now, I'm not sure why, but I learned this thing when I was in college, when guys would come in with a single leg here, or they would do a duck under and get behind. And I learned right from that position. That was, probably, I guess, the biggest, what you would say, throw that I ever did as a college wrestler in my freestyle. And it's a hip toss. He comes in, I hit that thing and go. Usually we think that throws, oh, we got to get a hold of the head and go. But that idea here became very, very helpful to me. Initially, I was thinking that I was so cool on what I was doing with the head and shoulders, until I stopped and watched that. I think it's all hips. That isn't my arms at all. And I think some of the times that I really began to sense that was I would have this elbow here, and this arm was reaching across to the far lat to do my hip toss, and I would lose the hand over there. and it would slide off his lat muscle. And I still would throw it. I still take him down. You say, how could you do that? Because this hand here had control of that one. And even though I wasn't doing this, you look at this thing is about as far from arms lifting as can be. If my hip isn't in place, he's going to lift and throw me. So the hip's got to get in to do that. Okay? So, spend some time with the guys and just initially, I just have them start here, step in and lift. And then after a while, you can have them do some of them where they put them all the way down. And we have a big crash pad. We'll put that out and let them go in the crash pad some, but you don't have to have it. I've noticed this. A lot of people who teach throws a lot, Greco coaches, they won't have a crash pad in that room. I think that's a little crazy. I think you want to get the guy to do it and do it repeatedly, have it there, because sooner or later somebody's going to get down the heart. But so they want, but their thought is that you should never lose control, that you have to go into that crash pad and need that much protection. You should always be able to do it on this. Well, you do what you want to on that. Okay? So, this is one. Now, when we get to doing that, and Todd starts, Tony, I'm sorry, Tony. Everybody in this place knows that but me, probably.
I'm changing my name.
Tony, you go ahead and do that. Right. Okay, and you get me, he's going to do that. Now, the thing that you'll do next, when he goes to do that, while he's getting his hip in place, go ahead, I get mine in. And now I'll do it with my belly. I did the same thing with my belly as I did with my behind, and he was trying to. I got my belly in place before Tony did. Instead of me getting behind here, I'm going to do the same thing from behind, and now we'll do lifts from this position. We'll get guys back here where they're going to control with their hip position and step in and lift. Now, when I do that, I got to come in with my knees bent, right here. I got to come in a position now where I lock and squeeze him. All the arms are doing is holding him to me. Now when I straighten with my knees, bend at the waist, he's going in the air. He's going in the air a little bit with bending of the knees. He's going in the air a little bit more with the arching of my belly. Okay? Now, every one of your throws, fancy throws, whether it's from behind like that, or here, where they arch back over, are all built off the same two principles. Straighten the knees, bend the waist. So, if we're wanting a kid to be able to develop continually, it's my thinking that we should give him tools like that so he can continue to do so. I'm going to point that out a little bit later when I get to one of the penetration principles. But this whole idea now of lifting, I want to show you one other little thing that we do, and it's very difficult. It's restricted. I never start with this. It's the idea of lifting him from the side. Let me do it with the hand around the waist. You can do it there. Often it happens with the wizard. Instead of sticking my behind in or my belly, I can do it with this side of my hip, right there. And I'll have the guys do this kind of lift right there. Get in place, knees bent, straighten them, lift it. Straighten them, lift it. On the other side. Straighten them, lift it. Straighten them, lift it. And I can do the same. And again, with the wizard. There you go, Tony.
You want me to do this?
Yeah, I'm going to put you to the test. Yes. Bent knees, there, now, and push into me. Okay, and he gets me up. See? Go ahead. Right there. Okay? Now, that one is, it's very hard to get the guy very high. But, and the wizard is probably the key place where you will use that. But you can lift the guy sideways, like that. Not just here, and not just there. Let me make another comment about the one in the back. The one in the back, I want to show you the way I left college, having learned this, and I was very comfortable with it. I remember Coach Nichols was the head coach, Les Anderson's assistant, and just a ton of things that I appreciate so much about the kind of meticulous, painstaking way in which I saw them. I didn't know the scheme that they were doing. But this little idea here, the way I learned some of this, I remember Les Anderson coming to me one day. I had done a back heel trip like this. I failed at it. I lost it. I broke several rules in what I just did. And I remember him coming to me and saying, "Man, Ben, what's happening with your back heel trip?" And I said, "Oh, I don't know, man. Every time I do it, I lose it." And he told me these two little things. He says, "Ben, make sure that you're tightened to the side. And then make sure that you can always see that foot and that you block it here. Not up at the knee doing things up here. You look straight at the heel and hook it right there. And then go back, arms tight, always seeing it. And you'll never have problems with it again." I did that. No problems. Very few times after that I say, I look and I say, what happened this time? I always knew what happened when I failed. And I was able to start saying, okay, now I'm going to adjust it. I'm going to stop doing that. And get to the place where I was confident putting them down. But in the meticulous way in which they taught us all the different things, back, forward, and going this way, they taught us to do this. Step in deep, up, swing the leg through, and down. I must have done that a million times. I started coaching guys doing that. And I labored and labored to get them to stand on one foot, you notice the lift, and then swing with one leg to turn the guy sideways. And it was like, I couldn't do it. And maybe you guys are way past what I'm talking about, but I'm talking about teaching the guys the first thing when they come in and they say, how do I lift the guy in the air and get him off his feet? No, I'd say this. One of the things I'd like to do, I don't think I can do this to you. I'm going to try it anyway. If I do like this, I'd like to take you through that. I did do it. Now, say, really, Ben, do you really get the place you want to do that? Well, I'd like to put him down in his head. How can he do anything then? His feet aren't under him, can't do any of his moves in his feet. Well, you lift him up in the air, and you've seen this. Guy lifts him up, puts him back down. And he can do all his moves again. Somehow, he can't go on his head because officials will never let that go by, and they shouldn't. Well, maybe a few of them. You know, your guys wrestling, my guys wrestling, we think we should be able to do that kind of stuff. But otherwise, no. Can't put him down on his head, officials like it. If you put him down on his feet, he can still move. You got to find a way to put him sideways. I still play around a little bit with that with guys, nothing like I used to. And most of us now are taken from here, turning the corner, going sideways. And it's working so much easier than that old leg sweep. When I think back now, I say, man alive, did coach really go through and spell that all out? He must have. Because I left there understanding that totally, and I was able to do it. And when I started trying to do that, young wrestlers wasn't working. Turn to the side and go was easier. Let me just show you this about this finish from behind. I always make sure this arm is tight. Never, don't do this. Take it sideways. Try to get your guys to get one arm tight and turn to it. What it does is I turn Tony. I put him off balance. I torque that thing like a pipe wrench. Right there. And as I do that, I can get in position now to pop my hip. Much better than sitting back here square. And I remember going through all kinds of things. Guys, this is like lifting your knee like a pitcher getting ready to do his wind-up. You can do it this side, do that side. Okay, I always did it on the right side, so I guess I'm a left-handed pitcher. And I went through all kinds of little goofy things like that. Instead of saying, here, we're going to lift him, right? Come in here with your knees bent, pop your hip, and he's launched. I remember when I really began to understand this as a coach, do this, and one of the guys wrestled through high school, good amount, a little rusty or a little rough on some of the techniques, I guess, that he'd been doing. But good competitor, really good heart. And we got in a tournament we have in the state of Wisconsin called Wisconsin Private College State Tournament. And this was to win that thing. He's in the finals. And we'd been working for the 2-3 weeks before on launching guys. And I intentionally said, didn't talk about finishes. He launched this guy, and he popped this guy up in the air so hard that he lost control of him when he went up in the air. It was like, I saw the eyes, the look in my wrestler's face. Man alive, coach. What you can do when you just pop your hips and use them. Instead of all the lifting he was doing, a lot of power up here in his arms from lifting, he was always trying to wrestle with his arms. And that guy went up in the air. He lost control of him. He came down and he hit the mat. Now, this is a little sidetrack, but have you ever had this happen? Have you ever done this? I hope you never do it like this. That wrestler hit the mat, and he was shaken up, and the referee, he said, oh, that's a body slam. And he called it. And that wrestler got shaken up a little bit. He got to here, and his coach was over here in the corner. And he ran out here, pushed the wrestler down on the mat, and made him stay there. We waited 20 minutes, EMS to come, take him, check him out, and they won the match. So what did you tell, you say, what did you tell your wrestler? His name is Todd. I told Todd, this is Todd, I hope you don't stop doing that move. We got a bit better control if we got to throw the guy in orbit that high. And you just he just kind of let go of the guy. We can't do that. But do not stop lifting. He's coaching high school level now. And he didn't stop it. He's getting his own kids now to do the same kind of thing. And he's keeping it in control. And it was like, all I could say to him is, there's nothing we can do. Coach insists as I'm going out here, we'll have to wait until the EMS comes, checks it out, we can finish our tournament with the rest of the people, and everyone here knows that young man is fine. They say, oh, you got to be cautious. I understand, you got to be cautious. But what I saw on this guy's face, I said, I'm afraid he just wanted to win. But anyway, I won't ask how many of you have been in situations like that, but unfortunately, it probably happens more than not. Okay, the next little idea, let's see how we're doing time-wise. Okay. The next idea that I want to spend a little bit of time on and develop is something, again, that I do, is the idea of extending knees and hips together like we're doing a squat. Okay? Many of you guys coach football. You understand in football, I was an offensive lineman my senior year when coaches finally figured out that they should not put me carrying the ball. I couldn't catch it. The previous year I was an A. I wasn't fast the year before that. My freshman, sophomore year, I was a halfback. I was a halfback because my older brothers were fast, 2 of the 3. And I was built like the 2 that were fast, not like the 1 that was slow. And they thought I was fast too. Sometimes, you guys need to do this. When you get a younger kid who comes in as a brother or an older one, check him out individually. I don't think the coaches checked me out individually. They just assumed that I should be able to play what my older brothers played very well. Bill's a great running back. Why can't Ben be a great running back? Bill just like him. He couldn't run. He stumbled. I was slow. And so then they said, well, why don't you be an end? You're tall and you can catch balls. I couldn't. I caught 3 passes all year. And the one I caught that actually scored an extra point, John was almost kicked out of the game because he was a captain. Because I was an illegal receiver downfield. Somehow the guy out the outside, he got up to the line, and I wasn't at the end of it. And they threw the ball to me. I caught it. It was one of the 3 times the whole season. Well, the next year, I'd say I want to be a lineman. And by that point, my older brother Phil was at the University of Wisconsin playing as a lineman, and I'll never forget this. I'm going to just show you a little thing that I learned in football of him teaching me to do this. I'll turn sideways. He got me down in front of a blocking sled. He says, Ben, every day, my college line coach teaches me to do this. Full extension, knee and hip together, into a blocking sled. Over and over again, he did that. Well, I shouldn't have that nasty. I remember doing that on the garage in the backyard, much harder. Okay, here, full extension, right there. And we do that over and over again. Phil says the coach would have us do several different kinds of extension like that, all with the idea of extending these two joints right there. Okay? Forgive me if I get off it. I got to tell you how you learn these kinds of things. I'm probably a sophomore in high school. My brother Phil comes home from college, and he's about 220, 225, playing as an offensive guard on a Big Ten football team. And he's saying, I got to get stronger. So he collected weights for 3 years in our basement until he had 600 pounds of free weights. We built a squat rack. Rather crude today, fancy weights that everybody has in your schools. Most all of you have some kind of weights, maybe not the fanciest, but you've seen what we had back then. My high school coach teaching us, drawing up how we could make some weights out of coffee cans and concrete and pipes. And we were ready. In fact, we started doing that, and then Phil showed up and said, oh, then John, you'll need to buy those. You'll need to build those weights. I'm going to buy some. So by the time he was a senior, he had 600 pounds of free weights. I remember him coming home and getting underneath that 600 pounds on a squat rack and doing all 600 pounds of it right there. And he did several of them and backed up from underneath that squat rack and said, it's not enough weight, can't get a workout. Not enough weight, can't get a workout. Phil, there's no more weights. We had the 50-pound plates all the way down to 2.5. He had bought an extra long bar from a machine shop, a little town down the road from us, and so he could put all those weights on. As Phil, there are no more weights in basements, that's it. So, well, there's got to be something that weighs something outside. Hey, as a farmer, there's going to be things around the farm. Maybe some old concrete blocks. So not unless you're going to tear something down. I got it. Tractor weights. He goes out and he gets the tractor weights and he puts them on there. I would estimate that those weights, or those tractor weights, were 75 to 100, 110, maybe 120 pounds. Let's say 75, okay? So now we have 750 pounds because we rolled those. I remember rolling them to the stairway, backyard. The stairway went halfway down our basement, and the little side door. And I says, "Now, Phil, you better take them down the stairway. I'm going to break them. There's going to be no steps left." So he carried them down and put them on there. I remember him getting back underneath and doing it again. And he got done, and he says, "Still not really enough." Well, obviously he had more weight than that down at university. And so I thought, man, alive. Hey, John, jump up on top of the bar on your end, and I'll do the same on mine. I jumped up on top of the bar. He jumps up on it. Kind of rough on the behind, but they say, hey, you've got to stop your big brother. So we do it. At the time, John and I probably weighed 130, maybe at the most 150 apiece. So, trying to balance ourselves, we had to have been adding at least another 75 to 100 pounds on each side. So now we got, 900 pounds? No more. He gets underneath and he gets going several more. And I began to realize, and John did too, that this wasn't getting the job done. And one of us, I don't know which one it was, turned to the other and said, hey, push against the floor joist of the basement. Push down as hard as you can. So here we are, balanced on each side. The insurance concerns really were, thought we went through. We didn't want to be safe doing this, and we shouldn't have. We didn't even think of such thing. We just grab a hold and push down. And pushing down as hard as I can on that thing. And John's doing the same thing over there. And here's Phil underneath. He gets done doing several of them. He's doing like 20 to 30 reps on each of these different things that he wanted to do. And he backed out from underneath that thing and I don't remember him saying, it isn't enough weight. I think he was saying, well, thanks, boys, but we're not going to do this on a regular basis. It's not real convenient. Now, you guys, I don't know if my brother was trying to impress us or what, but I had never forgotten that. I do want you to understand this. Phil was not doing this. I never went down here. Phil was doing a squat right there. That's the point I want you to understand. Phil could not have taken all that weight and gone down here and come up. Okay? I don't know if anybody can. I suppose some guy that's all he does is lift weights, maybe go all the way down there with that kind of weight. My brother Phil would. Phil's very strong. But he was showing us right there the power that you have. So in our wrestling, man, we need to work to get guys to be able to use that. I find so often they're trying to do things in lousy positions. How many of you guys saw Alexander Corrallin, flatten out in your belly, tried to lift Rumon Gardner in Sydney? How many of you saw that match? Okay. I had the privilege of being there. Jim was on the team. Initially said, people were asking me, you want to go? And I said, no, it cost too much. Finally, I said, you got to go. We got things together and went over. My wife and I were able to do that. And I was there that evening and watched this guy. And if you watched it on TV, you saw this happen the third time he tried to lift Rumon Gardner. He had him up in the air, whoops, this way. He's always trying to do the reverse lift. He got to here, and on the third one, it's overtime. He's losing. He has to score or it's done. He had Gardner up like this. Let me go on this side. He was locked like this, with his knees straight like that, and it's time to lift him. And the next thing he went to there. And I thought, here is a man that has amazed people for 12 years. When he got out of position, incredible the physique of Alexander Corrallin. But when he got to there, he fell over in his behind like a weak pup because he didn't extend knees and hips together. When you get in this position to do a lift, you got to go together to do that. Or I'd kill myself even trying on this guy today. These have to come together. And I thought, here's a guy, he knows better. And it was almost like this. He was locked with his knees like this, trying to just finally get the last lift to score a point. And I'm sure he looked and said, oh man, I can't lift anymore now. My knees are locked. How am I going to bend my back like this? And even he couldn't. He'd been doing that kind of thing to everybody, to the point they were running scared from him. But now he couldn't. So, let me show you a couple other places now where I use that. One of them is down in the bottom here. The referee, my high school coach taught me this. Guy does a lot of legs, you want to stay in the middle. Catches, get your crossbody right, it's nasty. So let's get out of that, and we do it like this. He'd say, the ref would blow the whistle, and we do this. Full lunge all the way out, come down on two skids of our elbows, spin and face him at the edge of the mat. At least there, if he chased and caught you, you were right at the edge of the mat where you could maybe roll out if he got you in trouble. And that's what my high school coach taught me to do when a kid was really nasty with legs. He was teaching me full extension. You get as far away from him as you can. Take your elbows down here so you don't skid into your nose. And draw yourself farther. They get to here and spin either way. Whichever's most comfortable for you. I say this. I learned to do that in front of a blocking sled, extending those two legs. So, I don't know how much you ever did that freestyle. It's a different game there. But all the way through college, just instead of going straight up in the air for a quick stand-up this way, I go straight out that way. Sometimes I do a stand-up. But it was a long ways away from me. Another thing I do, my plan is tomorrow, and my technique is to show some things on rolls. And I'll simply explain this. I do one little roll called an extension roll where I grab the wrist here, just seal them to me here, and extend. I learned that in a blocking set with that same extension. Under a squat rack, doing that right there. See, what Phil was trying to do on his squat rack, and later he had us doing it, is you get down here, and you're weakest down here, but what kind of lifting and strength do you get up here if you're only using the amount of weight that you can do down here? Up here, you need more weight. So we put more weight up here and explode several of them right there. Explode. Okay. You know, maybe I should just stop. I've gone through 4 different things, and maybe I can just take a couple of minutes. If you have some questions on a couple of these, to elaborate on them, and then I'll move on to the next one. But remember, we talked about the back step, pivot. We talked about locking the hands. Ideas there. We talked about lifting, and then extension of the knees. Next one I'm going to do, we'll talk about penetration and the basic needs of that. Do you have any questions for just a couple minutes here before I go on? I'm doing all the talking.
In the different body types, designs, is there a body design or is there a technique in teaching this lifting technique for different body types, like the short, the long, the tall, the thin?
Okay. The question is asked is what would be different for different body types
Right.
and teaching these different things, and particularly you asked about lifting.
Right.
And I'd say initially, Coach, it would be my thought that the principle I'm teaching here would be for anybody.
Universal.
But certainly a shorter, stockier guy has it much easier to get his hip in here. And what I find is this the case for, I use Jim Grunwald as an example, he gets his hips in a whole lot easier than I do because he is short and stocky. I do much more lifting from behind than I do in the front. Jim does much more in front than he does in the back. Although now he's learned the lift, Greco, and then that came behind. But let me say this. I'm not sure that I can give you an honest, thought-through answer on that specifically, except to say I have watched and listened to people through the years and analyzed myself. This move is better for a tall guy. This move is better for a short guy. And I've watched different times say, why does one wrestler learn one move and confidence in it, and another guy does something totally different, and another guy even something different? And yet he's in the same room, learning from the same coach, training with the same partners, and they all pick different moves. And I would say this to you. Body type and strength and just the natural genetic abilities of an individual are definite factors. I don't think they're the key one. And my conclusion in watching through my years in wrestling now is this. The most important factor on why one of your kids learns one move and another one learns something else is how they get confidence. It's how, when, and where they got confidence in that move. And I have the times and places where moves that I learned, or some of my wrestlers have learned, that I look and I'd say, it was the last thing in the world we should have learned with our body type. But someplace along the line, there was confidence built, and we took off with it. So one of the things that I think we do too often is we introduce a guy to a bunch of moves, and then we throw him into the place where he makes or breaks it. And he's not ready for it. And the move fails, and he never wants to try it again. So it's probably a cop-out on your answer, on your question. But I would accept to say this. The key factor on whether he learns to throw or not is whether he learns confidence in it. So I need to, as a coach, make sure that he's going along building confidence, not getting beat down before he gets it. He gets to understand some aspect of it. Okay? Another question? Anything else? Okay. The next one I want to talk about is penetration. And I don't know, I guess I was down here in Iowa wrestling on a college level and saw some of your high school wrestling down here. And I went back to Wisconsin and I thought, all Iowa wrestlers know how to penetrate. And 10% of Wisconsin wrestlers know how to penetrate. That was what I was saying 25 years ago when I got done with college wrestling and went up there. And I'd come back and see some wrestling, see the college teams come up here. I'd come up to Wisconsin and I would see them penetrate. Well, since I've been down here and I find you had to teach them too. So if this seems to be redundant, because I would say this, unless I've not watched a lot of high school wrestling in the last, 5, 6 years. Unless you've lost all of this, you do as well as a state, almost anybody around, of getting that step right there. But I can say this in the state of Wisconsin, I tell kids this all the time. They come to our camps, I work with them in summer times in clinics, various times during the winter, and I tell them this. Here's a tough high school kid. He's getting his junior, senior year, and he's lifting weights and conditioning himself to be that top competitor in the state. And I watch him drill, and he's out there doing this. He gets to drill. First thing he does is drop down to his knee and grab for legs. Now I watch him, many a time I see this. A lot of natural quickness in a kid. He's winning most of his matches. In his area, he's a king. He gets to the state, falls on his face. Can't win. Comes back and see him 2, 3 years in a row. And I say, when are you going to learn the penetration? I see his coach and I say, you better learn the penetration or he's going to stay right there. He said, but he wants to wrestle in college. College coach is going to look at him and say, I got to start all over with it. Because he never learned to penetrate to his opponent. The shot must be done with that. And so, relentless. Guys must learn to do this. And the ways that I teach a guy initially, little drills that I do, probably not totally new to many, maybe even most of you in here. Get this man in a semi-lousy stance. Don't get him super low. Semi-lousy stance. Come in. Fake for the head. Come in. Fake for the head. Come in. Fake for the head. Come in. I do 5, and he does 5. I do 5, and he does 5. You notice my initial one, left foot went forward every time. Now start mixing around. In, right, right in again. Right. And back and forth, learning to penetrate with both legs, going in, coming back out. Going in, coming back out. Going in, coming back out. And you notice this, my hips are not changing elevation. Kids will come in and do this. I got a new freshman this year, just past Thursday, and talking to him, he does this kind of thing. Real low here, but then he was staying down here. I don't mind if you hit to get under, duck, and go in. The high crotch single ideas. But he was going in and staying on all his shots. I asked him to penetrate. He was going down like this every time, even when he went in. And initially, I don't want guys to go down. I want them to stay up, then drive when we go for the finishes. Okay? Now, initially, my step and drive is not to take him down. I'm not trying to drive him through to a finish. I am trying to do this stuff. Step in, drive to move in. Step in, drive to move in. Drive to move in. And I never let him stay there. Now, one of the thoughts I have is this, and I'll explain this to him. You can use this if you want. Let's see. Come on. I like red.
What do you want?
I like red shirt today. You need to stand right here. Stand there. You know, I think we're going to switch this. Stand right here. Semi-lousy stance. I got to stand here good side. Okay, Tony? You're in a good stance. All right. Now, what's your name? Daryl. Daryl? When I'm here in the drill, I'm not drilling. Daryl, see, I told you. He's crosstown fish. Do you see him get out of that stance? I stood up, he went in a lousy stance. Daryl, you got It's kind of like this, you beat your sister, you can't go tell everybody that. So I beat you, I'm going to go tell everybody about that. But somehow I got to get to tell them. Now, you say, you're going to have to get through the crosstown fish to get there. It doesn't matter. I'm going to get to him before I take him down. And I'll ask you, when I come, I want you to just step aside. I fake. I went through him like he wasn't even there. And I stepped straight back to him. You say, well, what about in competition when he is there and when Tony is standing this close and he isn't the crosstown fish? He's a conference champion that I'm trying to dethrone. He's that state qualifier that's going to stay home this year, even if he went last year, because I'm going to whoop him. Now, what kinds of things, I just ask you this, what's the first counter that you teach your high school kids, or grade school kids to do when a guy shoots in on double or single leg? Sprawl. Get him back. So, Tony, I don't want to be sprawl. Okay, that extra 10, 15 pounds you got over me, I don't want to land on my head. I simply want you to do this. You hop back. So I'm here. See where he is? He started his sprawl. He started his sprawl and got that far back, and I was at it. That is no problem to me if I step here and drive. You say, Ben, what's your knee? Yeah. This is the thing. There's a lot of knee finishes where you go to your knee to finish a takedowns. There's a lot of them. They're good. I'm not bad-mouthing going to your knee to do finishes, though a lot of them you shouldn't do. The thing I don't want is if the kid goes straight to it. He drops to it instead of step and drive to it. Because now, if I didn't, Tony goes back, and I drop to grab the legs. Go ahead and lean on me. I'm dead. I'm not coming back up again. He'll make sure of that. Okay? I must step and drive through. So what I have happen, I get sometimes some kids that have had some good high school record, and they show up in college, and they haven't learned to penetrate. And I say this, either they learn to penetrate, or we're going to have them wrestling here the whole 4 years. And there have been times I've coached them for 4 years, and I never was able to get a kid. Hard-nosed, tense, man, he wanted to win so bad, and he never really improved. He just stayed right there because he refused to work on penetrating. And it's frustrating. I find out, I have to just confront them. Very direct and say, Tony, we appreciate you. You're a nice kid. But this technique won't go. And I don't know what you want to do. Compliment him first, then smack him good, and then compliment him again. So that's the old sandwich rule, right? It's one of the best coaching techniques you can have. I even use that now when my daughter is playing volleyball. Holly, that was a great serve, and then nice spike. Hey, Holly, you need to get off your feet. You're trying to spike like this. And she's in 8th grade. And she's tall enough, she can spike like this once in a while. If she got up in the air, incredible what she'd do. And I keep telling her that. So I jab her with, Holly, come keep jumping, get some energy, get up there. Hey, I like that spike at the end. So I don't do anything with it. I'm not ever going to coach my daughter in volleyball, but I want to encourage her to stretch and do more. And she was in a volleyball tournament yesterday, and the last thing I said before I left, I watched it, and then I left and got in the room to come. And I says, Holly, do you have any idea what that talent God gave you could do with volleyball? No, I don't have. Would you like to? Yeah, I would. This is good for you. She wants to. I say, then you'll have to work. You've got to want that bad. Then you'll start working and changing things like this. So I'm going to say this as a college coach. Let's do this. Man, shame on you if you send some kid to a college coach to teach him and take him to the next level, and you haven't taught him that little step right there. Now, I do this initially in my coaching, double leg, double leg, double leg. Let me say this briefly, that when I started teaching and doing clinics like this, out of college and after I'd done some of our Olympic competition, I had coaches come to me and they'd say things, boy, you and your brother are really basic. You're still using double legs. And I scratch my head and say, still using double legs. I mean, we shouldn't do that. And after a while, I began to see some of the other things. I said, I have been tied to that double leg an awful lot. There are some nice things in high crotches and singles, duck unders, other things that I should learn. And I should be expanding myself in those things. But I'll never forget one of the first camps that John and I ever worked at. It was up at Oak Bogie. And years ago, I don't know if they still run wrestling camps up there. It was a great place to run camp. And I remember introducing John to these guys. The guys all knew me because I'd been here wrestling in Iowa at college. They didn't know John because he wrestled in high school, this was college in Wisconsin. And I remember saying to him, now John is going to show you the only move he knows on his feet. This is a double leg takedown. And he says, but I don't think you'll get bored over the next hour that he's going to teach, because John knows at least 30 ways to get into the double, and he knows 30 ways to finish it. What I was saying was this: in every one of John's shots, he's going to be here. But you have 30 ways to get there, and you have 30 ways to finish it. Guys, I don't apologize for double leg takedowns. What I have done in my coaching, though, I tried to initially. Hey, a double leg worked for John and I. Should work for everybody. Get this kid strong enough and get them hard-nosed enough, they just blast away at each other. They get the takedowns. Well, I began to find that not everybody was as thick-skulled as me. And they didn't want to stick their nose in here 14 times a minute. And that's what I'll do if I have to, okay? It's not smart, but sooner or later it gets the job done. You can lose on 13 of them, get the 14th, you're happy. You got to say, hey, I can't be a successful coach doing that, trying to force them all to do that. I'm going to have to make some adjustments. So I began to do these kinds of things. I'm going to quickly go through just to probably be a more review than anything, a double leg, and then I'll show you some other places I use the same penetration. Double leg here, next double leg. By the way, when I teach double leg, I always pinch here, and then I'm looking to go with my arms like this. Get my hands all the way to his ankles. The guy who has shorter arm won't be able to reach as far. He'll probably just hold it there. But if I can, I drive to the ankles. Now, as Tony starts stepping back a little bit, here, I'll drive through it. I'll go hook and drive. And I may even have to do that the second or even the third step before I do that. But now, if he starts leaning into me, I'm going to slow this down a little bit now, so I want you to see this. He leans and falls down on me. Okay? Yeah, just no, stay right there. He's got his weight on me. I turn and put him down. And in essence, I'm lifting my shoulder out. I'll show the kids this so they understand that when he leans, I get out of the way, he falls down. I just need to guide you down. Okay? Because he's doing his straight sprawl back. But then, if he turns the corner in a whizzer, okay, he turns this way, I can't turn up into him. I collapse this way. And come on. He can pull the arm out, but if he doesn't, there's a pin. He pulls it out, go ahead, pull it out, come through, we just have takedown. And the guys will learn those kinds of ideas. So, straightforward, driving down. Straightforward and hook. Straightforward and block with this. And then turn into them, turn under. Each of those. Now, this would be a great place to show one other little thing that I put in this series of a double. Is what I refer to as a fix and broken double. I hit this here, he sprawls, and I fail with the whole thing. I will do this. I'll lock my hands, and I'll teach you guys this. My legs right now are all bunched up. They're not strong. Where are they strong? Up here. You say, well, get in here and drive into them. No, we probably already have proven that that's not going to work. So instead, I'm here, and I go behind and drive into his face. It's all right if I do that. Not anybody else does. Now, I take some definite time in my coaching where I want kids to understand this. They should not get down there and quit. Kids will do this all the time. They shoot in a double, and they fail. And remember what I said? Answer this man's question earlier. How you get confidence in a move. John and I used to get to that position, and we'd say, how do I hang on for a stalemate? Well, where's the edge of the mat? And how much is left in the period? And we were looking for a stalemate, we were looking to get out of bounds. We then started learning the spins and go around behind. And later on in coaching this, teaching it, I began to call it fixing the broken double. It's also fixing broken single. Because I'm totally out of position and fell down. I don't have two anymore, I only have one. So I changed my broken double, and I had to throw into a single, tripod, and spin behind till my shoulder is behind his thigh, then drive him forward. Okay. Okay? All right. We have an hour and a quarter left. I understand this is to be 2 sessions, but they told me that we didn't need a break in the middle. Except I need to ask for a glass of water. I don't know Wes is around here or somebody else want to get me a glass of water so we don't get dry up here.
I'll take one.
I don't need a glass. 2 of them. Good. Any questions again at this point?
Show us a couple other finishes from the double. You said you have 30 of them.
No, I said my brother did. Yeah, I do not have 30. I can show you a couple more, but I have to strain it.
From the bad position.
Oh, from the bad position. Well, I could say to you, first of all, well, let me do the bad position, then I'll show you some on my knees. The doubles on the knees. When he's all the way down here, the other finishes, go ahead. He gets down on me here. It says instead of just going behind this way, when I do this, go ahead and face me. He faces, I go in and drive him out. Okay? I step in, drove out. Let me do that again. Some of you guys in the back may need to stand up if you need to, but I'm spinning here, and when he won't let me go behind, I step here and drive him out. Come right up, off and into Cornell Navy Ride. The other one from here that John became, I envy, I guess, how often, how easily it seemed he would do this. And maybe it's because he's shorter leg than me. And maybe he was able to get his hips under. I don't know. But he would do it from here, and the guy would push in, he'd step right in and lift. And from here, I'll just show you the thing that we always emphasize on this. When we go up, we will let go, put this hand down, and start the lift and finish with the hips. One up, one down. Get it through. You can also do this little finish. Here you're up. So when I get to this point here, and through here, around the waist. Finish there. Inevitably there, this is getting me a good workout today. Deep breath. Guys will come here, and Tony can squeeze my ears, right there. I don't have headgear on, I don't like this. But when I come up this time, I will not try doing fancy things. Straight away. Headgear or not. When I come up, if I have any questions of whether he's going to hold my head, straight over the top. And you guys will grab the ankles to learn this. The more he grabs the ankles, the better chance I'll have I didn't know there wasn't anything back there. It's a trap door. I have to fix it later. Where's the water? Over there. We're going to take a minute break, so you want to stand up and stretch? Then you're ready to go.
See that South Tama coach.
Football players still haven't no losses yet?
We got our
You started with wrestling for a little time. behind by Lakeland again. Yeah, see, we would have beat Lakeland last night. We could stay with West Bend, I think. But I got 2 losses now, and I wouldn't want to bet the farm that we could beat West Bend this coming Friday. Evansburg's okay. There's nobody in it. You could beat half the teams in the district. Yeah, 14-13. There you go. You know, there's teams that they're actually 1A teams, you know.
Our district's tough.
Tough this year?
We had Parkman.
Yeah, see, Parkman's way dropped down. Newman's with you then now, so.
She got beat by Rockland last night.
Who did?
We did.
By Rockford? What was the score of that? See, there's no real good team in 2A out by us, you know. I think there's the parodies, you know. West Lyons went down 1 or something.
It's a quarter of the way out. 12.
Say, Eric.
Hey, how you doing? All the time. Sounds great. Right? That's
Okay, start up again.
Stan.
Third time. 16 years. great privilege. I got a couple others. Okay. Now, now Tony here, he's stretching me on making sure I'm in shape. You see me taking deep breaths. It's because I remember what I was told. I don't know if this was Les Anderson or possibly Coach Nichols. Remember him saying one day, you guys, if you're in shape, it'll take you 3 breaths from the time you go out of bounds till you come to the center, when you should be breathing almost normal. If you're not in shape, those 3 steps won't do you any good. So, what's that?
Stop to tie your shoes. Oh, that's right.
Well, I tell you what, you guys, I want to finish my story. Tied shoes, I think it is this is an opinion. I get here, I get to give at least a half a dozen opinions before I'm done here. Not all of it's mine. We are telling guys, and Fila is saying, take the shoes. I think it is a total insult, first of all to us, but then that they would even suggest that. If we cannot teach our guys to tie their shoes in a knot after they tie the bow, why in the world are we spending money for the athletic first aid department to buy a whole new case of tape every year just to tape our shoes? If we can't tie our shoes in a knot, we should be called for stuff. And I guess that's what they're going to do to us in college now.
High school.
Is it high school too?
Yeah.
Tie those things in a knot. I just tell the guys, they laugh at me. I said, what do you mean, coach? You tie your shoes like this, it's where you're going to hear from me. They hear from me because they don't tie too often. But anyway, you guys, is this silly? Start the season, tell you guys to do this. When it gets in a hard match, it's dead serious, and they're over here playing around with their shoestring because they're tired, tell them to do this. Get up. And then get ready to go. So you're the opponent. When you hear this guy coming with a big old steam engine like this, what are you going to do? I was kidding. My brother John has got this barrel chest. And I remember watching this. Occasionally, I've gotten this across to my wrestlers and glimpse it, but I guess probably nothing like John. They're in a dogfight, and John doesn't stand around and do nothing, so they get some good flurries, and they go out of bounds. And John is coming back, big old chest. My chest is skinny compared to his. Big old chest out here, taking those deep breaths, standing like this, and the other guy's crawling out here. And he's looking up at John and saying, what's wrong with this guy? How come he's not tired? John was dead tired over here. He was hurt, but somehow he learned that he takes those deep breaths, and by the time he gets here, he's fine. Now, I'm far from in good shape, but I still find to this day that I get behind in my breathing, talking, doing other things. You can't breathe, the way you ought to when you're in the middle of scrambling and everything. But when you have a break to do that, you ought to do it. And you know what officials do? I mean, you're an official. You don't have to think very long. Here's this guy out here anxious and ready to go, puffing like a steam engine, but this other guy is dragging out and delaying. They don't have to run back. I'll tell guys to run back. They just say, walk back. But walk back confidently and aggressive, getting that deep breath. So I have to do it now more than ever. Now the only coach is out of shape. Okay. The sixth thing I want to mention here is setting up takedowns. And I have various things that I've listed here in this particular little outline. Changing elevations. And I want to just do this. And our penetration for a duck under. I'm going to take, instead of going here, I'm going to do it here. And one of the things that we do is to change our elevation in that by coming right here. I was told years ago that the best people for duck unders are short, stocky people. Well, I'm not short and stocky. I'm taller than most people I've wrestled. And duck under became one of my favorite moves. Not duck unders like a lot of short people I know, I adjusted some things. But this duck under right there became bread and butter to me. Hook it here. Then later on I began to, and I teach now this relentlessly with my own guys, is come here and lift. I wish I'd been taught that early on. What did I just do? I changed elevations here and then lifted. Well, you have the guy do the lift and you didn't do it the last half hour's instruction, you're in trouble. You're going to get him out here and he doesn't know how to do that yet. Here and lift. There and lift. And then learn to, oh man, I'm putting the test on this one. Have the guys do a little of this. They learn to lift the behind, bring the head down. Now that little lift, when I come here, when I go up, the head and shoulders should be turned down this way. If I don't, I have the problem of pile driving him into his head. We'll do this. In, up. Notice the way I cradle his head all the way down? He came down fairly hard, but it was no problem because I held his head here and put it down. His behind hit first. And I'm cradling his head like a little baby. But you see the way I popped his hip, turned, and went down. I need somebody, not quite so heavy. Okay? All right. Now, I'll just do it one more time so you guys can see what I was explaining. Here, up, turn. Okay. Now, the change of elevation on shots, or excuse me, for setup, I like to do one little thing. Changing elevations and faking. I refer to this as bobbing and weaving. This, very predictable. It's rhythmic. Over and over again. Then change the speed and go. I'll do that. Paw, 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 quick. Paw. This way. I'll do this with here. Once in a while here, it's usually there. I'd rather do this. He didn't like me pawing on that head. And he'd come for the wrist control. He'd reach for wrist, I go. And I'd wait for him to reach for the wrist because I knew he would. Other guys, they duck their head and pull it away because they didn't like that pawing. And it's almost like a cat playing with a half-dead mouse. See, I used to say cat with a ball of yarn. You know, we have a cat in the house. I hate that cat. The only thing it's good for is once in a while, I see it catch a mouse in the backyard and kill a rabbit so they don't get in my garden. All right. Now, instead of just doing this, now I'm going to do this. Now, I like to mix things up. So the bobbing and weaving, the changing of elevation here, adjusting, I think every kid ought to play around with that a little bit. And I will have them do that as part of the whole concept of setting up. Instead of they're in here, and I go. And paw the head and go, or maybe they learn the elbow posts. I want them in all of those. I want them in tight 2-on-1s and things. Like bobbing and weaving out here. So he's never sure, am I going to move or am I going to come at you? If I'm here and I decide to shoot, you would respond differently than if at this position I decide to circle here. If you choose the wrong one, you could be in trouble. Okay? So I want to keep adjusting on that whole idea of setups. Not all of your kids will like that. Someone will fight you tooth and nail on it. But I like to have variety. And so, as a competitor, I was here, now as a coach. I mix that up and try to show that to everybody.
Yeah.
Okay, yes?
You concerned with reaching with the same big leg hand?
This is my thought, that this hand actually does majority of the reaching, but the elbow is always here. It's not here. If this extends, I'm in trouble. I find this also. I do this, it's too much open. So the majority of my paw is here, but that elbow is always bent in position. I feel him doing anything, I will stop my attack and go to defense. I'm here, he decides to come. Go ahead. The elbow is immediately there. And otherwise, extended arm, you're right. It's wide open. And then do this. You have problems with the kids doing that? And I believe I understand what your concern is there, is these feet should be light. Okay? My next idea is sprawling and getting away. And you'll see my feet are being light to do the moving and sprawling back. So I'm not standing here stepping in like this. When I do, with the extended arm, that's dead duck. And he's going to get it. So see, I'm light. So if he starts coming after, that foot is ready to go. I'm on my toes, I'm not back on my heels at all. I'm light here moving. And so the majority of my pawing, I do it right here. That was, to me, that's bread and butter. Not that it's going to be to everybody. But it was that I learned and worked very definitely on this elbow being down. And if you don't, then you get under.
Our coaches instruct that opposite hand.
So it's here. Yeah. Okay. Let me ask you this, in doing that. Are they turning the body? I guess what I'm saying, how are you going to protect this leg? Is this hand here? It's here to catch this way. Okay. And I don't have a problem with that. It is a different thinking. And the light feet and the elbow is the way I protect when I'm doing all that. Otherwise, I would agree with you that this was sticking the leg out, and that can be trouble. I'm not sure where. Along the way, I learned the count. I learned a good whizzer, but I learned a lot of things here. I was not afraid of him shooting on the leg. In fact, I fed him to my legs. Okay, but I'm getting ahead of myself. Hang on to that to my next area. Okay, we'll get there. I just make some comments here about hands. You guys have your own sequence, but I'm maybe jogging the thinking of several of you here as you start your season. As you talk about setups, make sure you do some definite things with hand control. And to play the games, you hear this. And initially, the idea of him getting rid of that. He grabs my wrist. Here, I want to get out. Chop it off. Right to there. Not that I'm going way over, just little ones. Little chops right there. Get free. Okay? Then a little drags. His hand's here, it's chopped. Out and swing it in. It's up here, chop it down, or again, out and in with the swing. It's here, posted. And here. And you guys, boy, I remember when I'd show 2-on-1 arm ties to high school kids or into my college team, as they came in from high schools and they were like, what's this? And 2-on-1s, they were stumbling all over it. I started from scratch. Well, that's not true anymore. Most of my college guys now have at least a reasonable understanding of that. And it's because you guys are teaching 2-on-1s in high school level all the time now. But he comes here, takes it. 2-on-1. Right here. We do a lot of this, and instead of spending all of our time going to the wrist to here, as we lead him, we're right back into the lifting position again. Okay? So make sure that you look at having some way both of getting his hands free, protected, as to setting up moves for it. So you're controlling and taking. If you look at that, what I look at now in setups are some things where I'm pawing and doing this, and, you know, your typical badgering aggressive double leg setups to faking to now full control. And then, first thing, your high crotches are done with the elbow control. Now we're just going up to here to do that. Instead of taking it here and taking this off, this was, everybody did that 20 years ago. Now they're grabbing here, I think, and taking the hand and doing this. And I prefer this to doing it all back here. Rather have it out that way. Okay, now, the counters. Sprawling and protecting ourselves. When man starts shooting in, the first thing that we teach every one of our young kids, most of the places across the country, is there. We sprawl back. I do that about 3 to 5 minutes on the first day or two of practice. And I tell the guys, you'll probably never see me do that again. I won't ask you to do that again. If you never sprawl that way again, it's all right with me. You say, read again. I want every one of my college wrestlers, after that, is this. When they sprawl, they immediately turn. It's not a straight back anymore, it's immediately with a turn out. And they should be able to do this both ways. So drill with that. One of the things that I do, I'm going to show you this little drill. I get Tony here, he'd be my only wrestler, but I have the whole squad here, is I tell him to get into position. I just use my arm like this, and I'll put him in position, say, we're going gear. You're in the stance. Now, circle. Now, do this in a big circle so you always see me. You're going to have to be in my class, okay, and in my team. You're going here. Okay, now, I will do one of two things. If I get too many of them, I'll point. If just a few of them, and they can all see me, I'll do it. And then come again. Okay. Circles, I step, I want you sprawl. Now, I will never get to you because there's 10 or 20 or whatever in your room. At the time when you're drilling this, the group, why you say, hey, when you go, you imagine the guy shooting at you. So, you're here, you're circling. Now, he did a good job. He looked at me, he circled, and he came right to his feet. It's exactly what I want him to do. Young wrestlers won't do that. They'll sprawl, drop their head. If they played football, they will have landed on their chest and thrown their feet 60 feet in the air. No good. I tell guys this, the less your feet go in the air, the quicker you can readjust and move. You don't want your feet way up there. You guys will do the football drills like this. Well, it may be great for football players, but it's lousy for wrestlers. I couldn't adjust during any of that. Instead, I'm moving the whole time. You say, if your hip didn't go down, we got back down. But I won't lay it on the mat. It's here and adjust it. Guys will do this. Guys shooting in on them and they'll fall to the mat. And you shoot in. I fall to the mat like this. So, we'll be up. Circle will go behind. Now, the reason I teach them to sprawl and then sprawl and circle is a couple reasons. One is this. When he shoots at me, his momentum is going straight forward. If I sprawl, I just keep running away from it. You keep driving, you drive me out of bounds, I look back. If I turn to the side, you keep driving, and that's your side, you're in trouble. I had a chance to take you down. I force you to turn corners. That's why my double leg earlier taught turning the corners. Okay? So as you're shooting in, I'm going to be like a bullfighter and get to the side, and I'll attack. Now, if you get a leg, right here, I'm not away yet. Now the idea of turning the hip and coming here is key. One of my assistants I've worked with a bunch, his name is Dan Willis. And I like Dan's explanation of this. He says, you know how you take and you put butter on bread or peanut butter on a jelly sandwich, peanut butter and jelly sandwich? Is you start and you smear it like this? He says, that's what you ought to do with his head. When you are doing this, he comes in, watch the position of my sprawl. I went down in a circle. You don't just take and say, well, I'm going to put the peanut butter on straight. Come on, you go in a circle. You get all the way around that piece of bread. You're going to glob it on thick. And so you put it around in a circle. Just give credit to Dan, because that's what he says here, and sprawling down away. And teach your kids to do that. The old way was here, crossface. Now, we do more, push the head down, and just keep arching. And then we do this. Turn the corner a little bit, because I want them to see the far hip right there. When you're doing this, we want to isolate all the pressure we can to this shoulder. This corner is head and shoulder. We'll do this. Hook here, pull. Hook here, pull. Grab there, pull. I forced Tony to put his hand down on the mat. If you didn't, you would have fallen to your face. So you have to make a choice. Am I going to keep hanging on, fall on my face, or am I going to let go? Now, you have other things that you can do from here. You guys will do a little sit out, fade away kind of thing and clear away from here. And, or duck under that way if I'm too high. There are other things you can do, but for the most part, you said, I give up on the singles because you don't want your nose to go to that. And I forced all of that by doing this. And I say this to you, you got some kids who are looking to go to college. They better learn this kind of thing, or it'll be long freshman year. They'll get killed on shots that they have been sprawling away on, and guys will just keep coming right into them. They'll go right through them. Now, I'll tell guys this. When you sprawl, the initial thought is get away. But when I say sprawl and circle, I immediately want to change their thinking from sprawl and get away to sprawl, circle, and reattack. Sprawl, circle, reattack. And the smearing only gives me a position to reattack. But there are other things that I can do now from here to not just get behind, but quarter Nelson. Quarter Nelson is effective straight on. It'll be twice as effective at an angle. A wizard, you can't do that straight on. Wizard's all day on the side. Arm, here. Double trouble. Here, all on the side. Okay, so you need to get the guy to the side and sprawl and get him to circle. Okay? Now, to answer one of your questions earlier, this is a little thing that I don't think is taught and emphasized enough. We're afraid of a guy doing this, putting his leg out and taunting his opponent to shoot. Okay? But I've known some wrestlers through the years, they wanted their opponent to shoot. And I watched him and I thought, he looks like a cocky, very haughty kind of a wrestler. And I don't like that perspective. I don't think I want that. I don't want to be known like that. Okay? But I'd like the guy to shoot on my leg too. And some of you guys will be saying here, you look back at your wrestling and say, shoot on your legs? What would you want him to shoot on your legs for? That's the last thing I wanted to do. I couldn't shoot on him. Okay, now I'm going to talk for a minute here, philosophy, not of you. If you went along with my thinking here just a minute, please identify with some of your wrestlers. Some of your wrestlers are not the slickest, fastest, smoothest guys in the world. And I don't care how slick your doubles, single, and high crotch are. You can't teach all of them to do it. But he wants to win as bad as the guy who is naturally taken to your high crotch or single leg. What are you going to do with the guy? Excuse me for telling stories on myself, but I'll do this. And you guys remember some of these people. I'm going to go back to the spring of my senior year in college. In the back of my mind, in fact, it's gone from the back of my mind to the front of my mind. The Olympic team is going to be selected this summer. I want to make that team. I was still in school, but I was training daily with the thought, Olympic team this summer, I want to make that team. We go to the national tournament, freestyle tournament. And in that tournament, I placed fourth. I was drilled on by a guy. He beat me 9-0. He did high crotches on me like he was drilled. And I went home just kind of dumbfounded. What in the world am I going to do? To this day, I do not understand what happened. Bill Harlow did not come to the Olympic trials. I cried all day. I was rejoicing and said, man, am I glad he didn't show up. I don't know what I'd done with him. I worked for 2 months to see if there was some way that I could beat him. But I was saying I'm in trouble when he beats me 9-0. He didn't come to the Olympic trials. I probably should have said that. But anyway, on the way home from that thing, Les Anderson says to one of the other groups of wrestlers, you know, we were in the cars, 2 different cars driving home. And his comment to the other guys was this: Ben won't do that well in freestyle wrestling, because freestyle always starts on the feet. The majority of the wrestling's on the feet, and Ben's strength's down on the mat. I am so glad that that wrestler never told me what Coach said. I made the Olympic team, and I come home that fall with medal. And that wrestler comes to me and says, you know, Ben, did you know what Coach Anderson said about you? He said you weren't going to do that well in freestyle wrestling, and here you have the gold medal. And he said, well, what did he say? And he told me. He says, you're not that good at offensive takedowns. And that's where freestyle is. And I think when he was doing it, he was kind of trying to, you know, get me to rib me a little bit about Coach Anderson. The guy doesn't understand. I'll get Peterson to get mad at me. And you know what I did? I stopped and I thought and I said, Coach Anderson understands me exactly. He knows me very well, except for one thing. He misunderstood how well he taught me to counter people when they shoot on me. Because in my international competition, I scored more points on counters, I should say probably about equal, on counters as I did on offensive shots. When people would shoot in on me here, I learned to turn it. And I didn't just wait for them to shoot. I got to the place where I'm out here and I said, man, I'm going to shoot. I got to get underneath them. But I get underneath them, I'm clumsy and out of position with this guy. And I began to say this, get in on him. And I'd actually bring him into my leg and I want you to notice it's sprawling. See, it isn't where you were talking about being concerned, and you were right, it should be here. As he came in, I guided him in and went to there. Now, whizzer, do the throws here, in behind, throw this, drive it down, do the freestyle, do your turns this way, and the various tilts that you can do from there. Another one from here, come across, take it this way. So a lot of those things I learned for freestyle. And by the way, I learned how to do that freestyle. You can teach your high school kids to do this. Teach them to do this in spring freestyle. Instead of going this way, I turn now, sprawled here, circle this way, block him, and take him over his side. Now I'll take, pivot it there, and go for your takedown. If you get out, I at least have my takedown. If I can control your arm, I got a chance for back points and pin. But I feed you to this position, put my legs back, then circle. Block, take you over. Or, watch this one. Here, just keep walking. Why did he go to his shoulder? Why is he fighting off his back? 2 things that made that happen. One is, he hung on to my leg. If he let go of the leg, he posted and I'd been right behind. But he wanted to keep me from going behind. The other thing is this. This elbow right here is hard against his chest. Spin it. He can't get off. Keep my back. So, I am finding, and I've just been watching our senior team recently, is I think they're too timid on putting people in here. And I think it's just getting people down in these positions. We work for that. And I see at a college level, that is very, very useful. I can't imagine that your high school kids wouldn't be able to get a ton of mileage out of that. If you got some guy slick and he gets, you know, he can do 10 takedowns in a row and let him go before the first period's up, he's probably not going to lean toward what I'm doing. But you got some guy, he wants to win. And he's making shots, and they're not smooth. They're harassing people, they're aggressive, but they're not smooth on everybody. Teach him some of this. And have him, just tell him to get a young kid. You say, want to build confidence, get a young kid, and get him out here and feed him in here. And he's pushing him down. Next shot, pushing down. And get him in circle, so that you're feeding him to your own legs. And tell him that. Get him to, so, I look at this and say it's not slick. But I had to compliment Les Anderson. He understood me totally, except for how well they had taught me counting. And I said, well, if I'm not going to always be able to slick everybody on offensive takedowns, I got to find another way. Years ago, I heard this statement, and the champion always finds a way to win. And if we say to the guy, all right, take those aggressive offensive shots, that's where you're going to win. Then we're saying, hey, you have to win my way. Give them some other tools too. Okay. There's two other things. I don't know if I've time-wise. I've got a little over half hour here yet. I want to just I'll go through what I do and maybe help you just see where another coach does this in his thinking. I look at, traditionally I would say, 5 tie-ups. There's some new things that we're starting to play around with John and I and some other guys that I would add to this a bit now. So I don't know if, how much I'm going to say it with you or ready to even for high school kids. But 5 different tight tie-ups that have traditionally been used. 1, front headlock, right here. 2, collar tie. 3, underhook. 4, 2 and 1. And there's nothing magical about the order of those. The 5th one is the 2-on-1 wrist tie. You understand the difference of that one and this. I like for all of my wrestlers to understand this. And what we are doing in our camps, in particular our camps for junior, seniors, and high school, we go through every one of these for an entire evening session, each one a different night. The 5 nights of the week, they go through a different one of these. And so what we're telling them, we want to saturate you with the idea of this. Not pawing and faking and waiting for him, but to aggressively and confidently go after him and taking control of him. So it's my thinking. I'm giving you some my coaching thinking as well as my competitive thinking, is that we need to be able to control this man's upper body and give your wrestlers the tools to do that. And initially, the first one that I find that I learned, tight tie-up was here. Otherwise, man, I was out here scared. When I learned that, I get up in here. But what do most people do in this position? Right here. I want you to notice something. I came inside. If he hugs here and squeezes ear to ear, I immediately say this. This is going inside and pushing that out right there. If he insists on coming inside himself, I just go in myself. You go in, I go in. You go in, I go in. You go in again, I grab it. Okay? If he comes here and I try to get this in here and he won't let me do it, I do this. I take this thing and I squeeze it to me and grab my head into his ear and that was the first setup I really remember doing, other than to blast away at a football tackle for a double leg takedown. Grind his ear until he pulled it away. And, I was wearing a headgear and my partner in practice wasn't. And he kept squeezing my head and he couldn't get it free. I took my head and went like that. He pulled away, did my duck under. I said, hey, that works. Well, I get in competition, both guys got headgear. They crank like that, and you're squeezing like crazy. And the guy says, man, I got to pull away from this. He pulls away, I'm gone. But I don't like that position. I want out of it. And so I tell guys, they come in like this. Elbows together here. Right here. Underhook. Here. Notice? How much difference is it? You see any similarity in all of these tight tie-ups? I want you to notice something. This is what I tell people. Every one of them, for the most part, controls this joint and shoulder right here. All four of those went after that shoulder. They're the 4 fingers of my 5 ties. My hand. Right here. All of them have the same series of counters. My head drops down on every one of them. I can drop my head down and block on every one of them. Or I can counter this way. You try to drop down and into me. I use my hip. This problem arch with my hip right there. Great counter. That keeps you from getting into my legs. Do it here, same thing. Here, come arch. So my defense is either head low or hip when I'm up high. Okay? Offensively, understand this. If you've not done tie-ups to your high school kids, let me give you this little motivation. I believe this was Bill Farrell, was a coach at the first international team I was on, that made this statement. It says, any move you do from any other setup, you will do better from a 2-on-1. And he went past it, and he said this. He said, if you get a 2-on-1, I want you to get down that first step. It would be like you wrestling. He was talking about the 2-on-1 at the time. He says, 2-on-1 is like wrestling here and you standing in a 6-inch hole. Don't you like to have all your wrestlers wrestle? And your opponent's mat is 6 inches lower than yours. They step on the mat and they're always 6 inches below you. According to Coach Farrell, you could do that by 2-on-1. I've watched that as a coach through the years. I agree with you. Any move we set up in another place, I can set up better with a 2-on-1. An underhook, front headlock, counter top. So, you guys are coming in and they're trying to do this kinds of things here. Try doing that same kind of stuff here. Don't stop from where you're setting up now, but get them to do this. Now, you say, why is that so much effective? If I put a guy in a 6-inch hole, because I can put him where I want him. Where do you want him? Well, what kind of move do you want him? If you want to shoot on that leg, then pull it to you. There it is. You want to do a double leg? Then straighten him up. I'll make a shot. You want to do a front headlock? Well, then bring it down to here. You want to do a throw, headlock? Get the head in position. And these tie-ups permit you to move the man and almost massage him to the position you want. Okay? And you can do that with all of them. So I get my guys, in my coaching and teaching now, is we'll spend time in these and just move the guy around the mat. Back and forth, up and down. And let them massage until they're confident. And there's some kids this summer in our camps. I can't wait to see what they do through the season. And watching their eyes just kind of move like this when they realize what they could do with their opponents. And the way they were taught to do that. Okay. The last little thing I have on this sheet is pressure. And not everybody likes pressure, and it's some of what I probably even did in this. Not everybody likes pressure. But someplace along the line, you better teach guys how to pressure people, crowding them, and not waiting where they're always backing them. I don't know why, but recently I've had some guys that came from high school with some good wrestling backgrounds. And it seems that last year, my best wrestler, all of his setups seemed to be with a step back. You can imagine how much I was always trying to keep the ref from getting mad at us. And when he first came in as a freshman, it was like nothing ever went forward. And I finally got him to say, hey, let's pressure in, then make your step to get the guy. See, he always wanted the guy to step in, and then you make a shot. That's great for setup. But I would say this, if you're going to stay alive in college wrestling, you've got to have some pressure into people at the same time. So I just had some specific times in my coaching where I said, we're going to talk about pressure. And the key place really to do it is in those tight times. Okay? And where you're taking, whether it's the loose one That's the thumb, by the way, in my handful. Here, or it's the tight ones. I'm moving him to adjust to. Okay. I have another thing that I'm going to finish the last part with, but let me make some comments of the display. I saw several of you over there during our water break. And by the way, let me have a glass of water while I make some. Any of those flyers over there, you're welcome to take those. And you see that one little thing that says, building good memories for tomorrow. That's mine. And I want to maybe just give you a little bit of personal thank you. A personal motivation and a story in my own life. When I was in college at Iowa State, I studied architecture. I guess ever since I was a little kid, I loved to watch things being built. And even better is to do it myself. But to see something being built, it's great. Every day, to this day, I'm driving my kids to school in the morning. And on the way, we're talking about what's being built. Summertime, we were going to camp. And we were on a camp at a little elementary school that my kids go to during the summer. And so we were driving right back out to that school every morning on the way to camp. And we watched this house being built right in the middle of the woods. And my kids got all excited. My little 8-year-old, we started saying it was her house. And all of a sudden, they took this beautiful house that was stained wood and painted it blue. And we all said, oh man, what'd they do? They ruined the house. Well, now we're watching an addition going on at church. And every day my kids, and my daughters, they're 14 and 8 years old. And every day now they're going by and they're looking at the church building and how it's being put up with block and stone. You know, it's not wood like the house was. And I'm going to start calling it their church. It's not our church, but we'll say, hey, how's your church building doing? I say all that kind of silly because I love to watch things being built. When I was at Iowa State, needed to get a workout. The first thing I did was run to see Hilton Coliseum being built. My senior year, they opened it and we wrestled it. I watched the whole thing being built. And every 3-4 weeks, and if a month went by, oh man, I couldn't wait to get over it. They put this big old beam up and the thing fell down. All written up in the paper. Man, I gotta get over there and see what they're doing. So I majored in architecture, thinking I'm gonna be a builder all my life. Graduate, go up to Wisconsin, get a job in an architecture firm, and I'm thoroughly enjoying it. But every afternoon I'm going over to the wrestling room to work out with the university team, so I'd be ready to go international. And I'm working out with other wrestlers in a little club there as well as university wrestlers. I did that for a year, 2 years, and during the second year, I'm asked to coach at the Bible college I'm at today. And I go over there, drive an hour back and forth every night after work. And at the end of doing that for a year, said, I will never do this again. I was weary of the driving back and forth, but my time of coaching those kids, I couldn't get out of my mind. I came back here to Ames to train for the second Olympics that I was in, and went back to grad school to study more architecture. And after 1 year, I dropped out of the architecture and just said I'm going to train for the next Olympics and do a little building on the side, put some money in my pocket to have food on the table. And but I really stopped the architecture department and say this, because I got this philosophy. If we take and change the buildings that people live in, we will change them. That was the thinking and the philosophy that was being pushed by my professors and my classmates. Then I knew different. I knew better than that. It ground on me all the time. And I was saying, you don't change men by things that are going on outside, you change them from the inside. Now, I'm tell you a little something here personally, and hope you make you do some thinking, whether you agree or understand totally what I say or not. What am I going to do to change people inside? I had my folks and my coaches and my family back home did a ton of things to change me from the outside. But one of the things that I found was so helpful is they motivated me by getting me to be concerned about them and what was most important in life. And when I was in junior high, I understood that the most important thing was not what I did just to people, but what God thought about myself. And I understood that he would have to judge my sin. I would have to answer to him, the one who made me. And as a junior high boy, I admitted my sin to him, and I acknowledged that he had provided a payment for my sin in his son. And I trusted him as my own Savior, as my payment for sin. I grew in my understanding of that through the years afterwards, and not just my understanding of it personally, but my desire to tell others about it. And that affected my wrestling in some very definite ways. But now I start coaching, and I'm finding this. Hey, I build in the lives of young men, not just in buildings with bricks and board and stones and ivy. And I got more excited about that. I noticed this when I worked at the architecture firm in Madison. I work all week long, and then I'd go and speak different places, on clinics and school assemblies and things. And I'd come back into architecture, had a ton of fun in the architecture, thoroughly enjoyed it. I started longing for the weekend when I was going to work with these kids and coaching them. And after the second Olympics that I was in, I went back to Maranatha to coach again. And within a year's time, I realized this. Building is fun, but I'm not able to make a life's work out. I got to build in lives of people. And I started coaching and working with the idea, how can I teach and motivate and build into young men? A while ago, my brother John had to speak for athletic directors and coaches of all the conference schools where he and I went to high school. So all the different coaches from all the different sports and the athletic directors. And they were going to have banquet. And they asked him to speak. He told me what his subject was. And it was this. He says, I started and I told him, I said, you know, we always hear this, sports builds character. And we say it in wrestling. And he said, man, I disagree with that. Sports doesn't build characters. It builds a lot of characters. I look at some of the strange characters that come out of our sports. I don't say just wrestling, but others. We got some, they come out with all kinds of problems. And we've encouraged and motivated them. Sometimes at the professional level,